the general plan and taking from it ideas as we set up this overlay zone. If you remember, this section of the county general plan was initially adopted in 2001. It was even revisited with some public hearings in Wallsburg, I believe, in 2006. In it, it recommends preservation of the A20 zone agricultural lands, recommends a 4 times TDR. And so this is put in an effort to save the farmlands, which is one of the things that the landowners that I'm representing would like to do. Now, there have been other times in the past where our county has not followed through with its general plan recommendations. A good one would have been in the late 70s to maybe preserve a corridor to allow for a bypass road of Highway 40 to get off Main Street. That was considered again in the the mid 80s. Heber City decided in Wasatch County not to follow through with it then. Now 30 years later, we're struggling with that issue. There are other similar issues that we've had. There are some discrepancies in the general plan. We've explored those tonight. We'll have to work through those together. But we think that the Wallsburg Overlay Zone is a way to implement recommendations that are in the general plan to preserve the mountain area and also to preserve the A20, and we've also proposed the RA5 agricultural lands by clustering it in the foothill area. So if you go forward with the slide. So on pages 237 through 239, there are some recommendations. I'm just going to hit these very quickly. The general plan recommends the increase in density and saving the agricultural 20 zone. It recommends the 4 times increase. It discusses a special service district for sewer and water. It also recommends creating an agricultural protection zone. And some of the things that we've proposed with the Wallsburg Overlay Zone include that. So here are some benefits that we feel like the overlay zone would have. 1, it preserves agricultural land. Number 2, it creates a no-build zone for just over 4,900 acres of land on the mountain area. The current P160 zoning would allow us to build well beyond that, and I'll show you the plan in a minute. But we think this is a way to preserve the wildlife area that's been talked about tonight. To also have it open to the public for continued use for hunting, for trails. If it was in a traditional P160 pattern, this would just, the whole South Mountain area would be carved out, private ownership, largely large homes or cabins, 160-acre lots, fenced off from any use by the public. We give a planned second access to the valley, which is proposed in the general plan. This would be paid for by the different developers, but because it's a public road, eventually it would be turned over to the county. Our plan also has ways to connect other existing roads to this new collector road and the main canyon road to create a better circulation pattern instead of just a long dead end. Promotes a public trail system. It gives incentives to these landowners and potential developers to bring in essential community services, a gas station, a convenience store. Also gives incentives for other important public things, parks, recreation facilities, schools, libraries, churches, etc. It also gives incentives for those landowners that own part of the mountain area to not just preserve it as open space, which we could do, or a landowner could do, say, hey, it's open space, but I have an easement on, I'll fence it off, but then to allow public access. We've consulted with the maps in the county general plan and also on the State Division of Wildlife Resources website and studied their habitat maps for all of these areas as we've put our plan together. The proposed plan would not change the density in the RA5 or the A20 if someone chose to develop just in that zone. What it does allow, though, is for the preservation of those zones and then transferring the proposed homes into a receiving zone on the foothill area of the P160. in our initial application, we proposed that the P160 be given a bump. As an example, in your mountain zone, when somebody switches from the standard zoning to the plant performance zoning, they almost automatically get an increase in density of 4 times. With our initial application in July, that's what we proposed. As we've worked with the county, we've modified that proposal, and so in the P160 now, we've not proposed any base density increase. That would say with the 160, the TDRs would be transferred from the A20 and the RA5. Our initial proposal in July had a range of density bonuses up to 145%. As we worked with county staff, we dropped that down to 65%. So here's an example of how it worked for one of the property owners. There's almost 45 acres in the RA5 zone. Divide that by 5, that would be 9 lots under the traditional zoning. With the recommendation from the general plan to bump it up by 4, that would give him 36 lots that he could, in the transferable density part. And the P160 is almost 1,500 acres. Divide that by 160, that's 10 lots. So his base density, when he transfers it, could be 46. And then if he does all the other density bonuses that we've talked about, whether it's providing a public park, a site for a church, helps develop a convenience store, he could have up to 65% on top of that, so that would be 76 lots. Again, on the almost 1,600 acres, that would be a density of 1 per 21 acres. If you got every density bonus and the 4 times for both agricultural zones, not just the A20. So with all the property that's in the Wallsburg Overlay Zone, there could be theoretically 94 homes. The current proposal with the county would be 235 homes would be the base density on over 8,000 acres. If all the density bonuses were achieved, that would be 390 homes. So base density would be either 1 per 35 or 1 per 21 acres. Again, our July application was a lot higher, but in working with the county, we dropped that. You go back to the you now go to, for interest of time, would you go to number 4. So the area in purple is the overlay zone. So I'm going to slide back even farther so I'm not standing anybody's legs. So the area in purple is the 8,000 acres that's in the Wallsburg Overlay Zone. This heavy blue line that you see is the line that we've proposed in the overlay zone. Everything uphill of that, almost 5,000 acres, 4,900 and change, would be the no-build line in the overlay zone. If this were to develop just under the current zoning and under the recommendations in the general plan, there would still be a road that connects to 189 because that's called for in the general plan, and we feel like the county could require that. The difference between this and the overlay zone is the overlay zone would connect it in several places. This would just go from one area to the next, but you can see these yellow dots represent homes. The dark lines represent either 160-acre lots, 20-acre lots, or in this area, 5-acre lots. What's discouraging to me about this plan, although it meets the current county code, Title 16, is that all of this area, when you first come into the valley, could be carved up into 20-acre lots. Although 20-acre lots are fairly large, sometimes that reduces the amount of farming that's on it. It just kind of turns into a place where it's a large home, a large barn, and maybe a few animals. What's really concerning, though, is this area could be carved up into 160-acre lots. There would be no public access anymore. It's private landowners, largely fenced off. Although it would be fewer homes, homes would be way up high on the mountain, down below, and then all this agricultural area would be carved up. All right, Doug, would you go back to show number 5. So our proposal with the overlay zone, again, this is the blue line. Uphill of that would just be preserved in open space. You can see a clustering of development here, clustering of development here. This is actually the area of the density example I gave you before with the 76 homes on 1,500 acres with this landowner. Clustering of lots in this area. These lots range in ½ acre to 1 acre in size. These lots are 5 to 6 acres. Although in working with the Erkenbracks, we have not developed a concept plan for them, but we have identified area where there would be homes and then a commercial area. This plan, in the overlay zone, the requirement would be to have at least 80% open space. And our proposal, again, would be to restrict development here, cluster it all down into this area. Although it is more homes, it gives more open space, protects wildlife corridors and habitats, protects the stream, encourages preservation of wetlands, riparian area. But the cost that comes with this is what we feel like is in the general plan. You get the density, transferable density right at 4. Now, Gerald, you asked a good question at the beginning of the meeting. Has this ever been done? My experience in other municipalities, including Midway, why it hasn't happened, is usually by the time you work with somebody else to move density off of their property and move it up, there's usually not enough to make it work, or the municipality, mostly in the city's cases, they already give enough density, so why go out and work with somebody to get more? Because the P160 has a relatively low density, there is an incentive to work with property owners in the agricultural area to then move it up, but that transfer of at least 4 times is needed so that you can help pay for the infrastructure and still give developers enough of an incentive. Now, the plan I just showed where it was carved up in 160, again, that could happen under the current county code. That's an application that they could come in with tomorrow. One of the things that was mentioned today was, how about we look at the whole valley? You know what, not a bad idea. The recommendations in the general plan have been there for almost 15 years now. And they've never really gone beyond the paper that they're written on in the general plan. The county hasn't sponsored one, Mountain Lands hasn't sponsored one, the town of Wallsburg. So over the last 9 months, I've worked with property owners that represent 8,000 acres. Finally hit a point where we said to make the July application, we can't take on anybody new. And these landowners were willing to sponsor this application. If there's a way to do a joint application between the town, these landowners, and the county, maybe that's something we ought to look at. This is something that the county would now like to look at. You know, the important thing is that we get it right. And so I don't mind looking at the whole valley. But until there's someone else to help sponsor the application, we will continue to represent the 8,000 acres that are here, and we'd like you to consider it. As stated before by others, we really actually have some of the same objectives. We would like to preserve the mountain. We're sensitive to wildlife. And we want to see a good quality of life continue in Wallsburg. Our view may be a little bit different, but we at least see that our plan is a way to preserve some of the land that makes the valley unique. But the price that comes with it is a little extra density. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Paul, you got a question?
Yeah. Yeah, well, most of the speakers here tonight have been very emotional and ambiguous, and they haven't really told us what they want to do, or what you want to do. Is there a plan? In other words, if I give you this pointer, can you show us where they want to build houses and
Sure.
so forth and so on?
I'm going to use this pointer if that's okay. So this area in blue, outlined in blue, is an area where single-family homes are proposed on the Erkenbrack property. We haven't laid out the lots yet, but we've more of a bubble diagram concept, but that's where single-family homes would go. This area in red is where we propose a commercial development near the intersection of the new master plan road and US 189. It's likely where the gas station convenience store would go. This area in green right here is 1 acre lots on the Nelson, on property owned by Mike Nelson. Here in the lighter green, these are 1/2 and 3/4 acre lots on his property. This area in the bright green is land that's proposed for a public park and a church site. This more purple looking color is on a different property owner. They would have 5 and 6 acre lots. They own all of this area in here, but they would cluster it at this one end. Although we've looked at master planning property for some of the other property owners, and they have the right to, under this plan, to transfer development, we didn't get far enough along in their concept plan, and there was one property owner that didn't really want to share it yet at this time, wanted to see how this process went. Typically with general plans, you just give an idea of what you're doing, but it's not necessarily a development approval.
Right.
So that's the quick overview. There is a place where we have so right here, this is a trailhead where people could come and then park their cars and then get on the public trails that are proposed up here. There also is a family reunion lodge proposed as part of this. It would handle a group of about 40. Family reunions could come there. I guess a business could come and hold a retreat. We also anticipate that scout troops or girls' camp activities would be held there. But the proposed lodge is about 40 people.
Well, these,
Answer your questions.
well, these areas that they have the planning for homes, is it at the foothills on the western side?
Yes.
In other words, the river runs right down through the center there. It's pretty flat.
So the river is here. The brown is some of the alluvial fan area. County code may allow development on the alluvial fan, but there's some geotechnical studies that need to be completed. We've moved these up just a little bit farther to avoid that. But again, below this line, we consider kind of the base of the mountain and preserving almost 5,000 acres of development.
Thank you.
Gerald.
If I understood what you just said then, if we encourage a grant of the density that you're asking for in this proposal, you wouldn't be held to this plan. Density would just be granted and then approval of whatever each of the landowners wanted to do, that would be.
Well, they would each be required to go then through the development review process, which would be master plan approval and density determination, preliminary approval, and final approval, which is required of all plan performance developments. Now, in creating the Wallsburg Overlay Zone, though, you want to throw in some conditions that kind of help match this plan. For instance, we declare, the Planning Commission declares that any development in the Wallsburg Overlay Zone has to stay below this line, and somebody could come in with a new proposal and say, well, I know they presented that way, but we want to do homes above. So there is an opportunity to write conditions in the ordinance now.
Because I was just looking and thinking, under the present circumstances, Wallsburg Assembly encourages 5-acre lots. We did that, we got 1,650 acres of land with this density granted to it. Or we could put in 1,655 acre lots.
But this isn't 5-acre zoning, so you have to go to the plan performance ordinance.
Yeah. And that would have to be carefully written.
Understood. Doug, maybe just one more slide, just to give you, we go to C.
While you're getting there, we have one question.
Okay.
We have one question. Ready? We're out of time here.
I'll make it real quick. I won't even have time to come up. I think it's interesting that the proposal says if we do all these nice things, grant us additional development rights. Why aren't some of those things like park space, community centers, cemetery, whatever, those ought to be requirements to do this development, not a freebie. If we do this nice thing for you, then let us build another 30 or 40 homes. That puzzles me extremely. I think that's developer doublespeak.
I think that's a taking. I think we gotta think about that. That would be a taking. Anyway, go ahead.
Just to make sure we're all on the same page, our initial application in July proposed a 1-for-1 base density in the RA5, a 1-for-5 in the A20, and a 1-for-40 in the P160. In September, after working with the county planning office, after they'd reviewed it, we moved each one of those back to what the current zoning ordinance is. Initially, our bonuses were up to 145%. Bonuses in September were modified to 4 times if it was with the TDR, 4 times in this zone, and then 65% in the P160. Staff is, tonight, as you noticed, Doug had recommended 1-for-1 in the RA5, 1-for-20 in the A20 zone with the 4 times TDR. And the latest discussion that we've had is 1-for-160, less the environmental constraints in the P160, and still holding to a 65% density bonus. Quickly, what does all this really mean? 94 units in the 8,000 acre to be built now. With our initial proposal, it was 393 or 570 with all the density bonuses. I've heard some numbers just out in the rumor mill that were a lot higher, but I want to clarify that. September proposal would have been 235 base, 390 with all the density bonuses. The latest recommendation from the county planning office would be 164 base or 270 with all the bonuses. We feel that this is kind of the limit for TDRs to work. We need to discuss this more, but at some point, if there's not enough transferable to rights, nobody will transfer them. And you'll just end up with what we talked about before, your standard zone. Thank you.
Okay, it's past time to adjourn the meeting. I'd like to thank everyone that's been here for the information that's been